Good morning, friends. It's Heather at Bush Poppy Farm. Hope you're doing well today. We're starting the day in the greenhouse, but this is going to be a do multiple jobs all day long kind of thing day. So the first thing we're going to be doing is bumping up some plants to a better pot. These are nursery plants that are looking rough. So this is a Ficus decora. It is a variegated, beautiful ficus. It has been dropping leaves like crazy. The soil I let dry out in between. In fact, it's very dry right now. But I think the problem, I'm hoping this is true, is that it's a plastic pot. These nursery pots are not meant for long-term storage. And the soil seems very caked, like not very well draining. So I'm going to bump this guy up to a slightly bigger pot. I hope I have one. Yes, I do. Slightly bigger pot with some new soil that has a lot of cactus potting mix in it. Ficus, they really want well-draining soil. They get very unhappy if it's not. And ficus like this one, because it's variegated, need very strong light. So I have this in a south-facing window, which is a good place for it to go. But as you can see, the leaves are brown on the ends. They're not ready to come off yet, but that won't heal. That tissue is dead. So I'm hoping that by putting this in a new pot with better soil, a little bit of fertilizer, we'll be okay. I mean, it's putting on new leaves, but I shouldn't be seeing this much leaf drop. Okay, so that's the first one we need to bump up. And then this one, this is a zebra plant. It's beautiful. There are two of them in here. So I think I'm going to split them if I can easily. But what I noticed, the other reason I want to bump this up is number one, we're still in our nursery pot. But two, the soil seems to be heaving. And by that I mean in between cycles of watering, it like puffs up and starts to like kind of like spill over the side. It's very weird. But again, it's very cakey. So I'm thinking it might have a lot of peat moss in it, which would cause that kind of swell. I just want to put it in new pots. If I can easily separate these two, I will. And if I can't, I'm not going to stress it too much because you can see we've got some necrotic tissue here as well. But again, I'm going to put it in the same mix. It's like some potting soil and a lot of cactus mix because I want this to be very free draining. Just like the other one, it doesn't want to sit in water. So you have to let it dry out in between waterings, but you can't let it get bone dry because then the soil becomes hydrophobic. And then when you do water, it just runs right through and nothing really stays in there for the roots to take up. So it's a delicate balance. This guy also does well in bright light. So I've had it in the same location. And some of that I might say is leaf burn from the sun, but I'm not thinking that's true because I'm seeing that on the leaves underneath where they're sheltered from the top leaves. So again, it is putting on brand new leaves, so that's good. I just think hopefully by bumping these guys up to bigger pots with better soil, things will improve for them. So that's the first thing we're going to do today. Then I need to go into the beehives. If I can find the chest strap for our GoPro, then I'll bring you guys along. But I definitely can't bring this camera. Number one, it overheats pretty quickly when it's in direct sun, so it wouldn't film everything anyway. Two, there's really no place to put it that I don't have to constantly move it. And this is going to be a pretty deep dive. Initially, I thought I was just going to go in and trade out the frames in the honey supers from the old frames that are infected, basically, have been impacted by the Apistan strips, to brand new frames. And I have a whole bunch of brand new frames to put in there for them. But we are getting so close to swarm season that my mentor, I spoke with him yesterday, and he suggested that I go into both the deep boxes and take a look underneath. So this is challenging because they're very heavy. Basically, I have to pick up one of the boxes, slide it towards me, and then tip it so that I can smoke the underneath and look for the queen cells. If there's some in there, as long as they aren't capped or have eggs in them, then I'm okay. But if they have eggs in them or larvae, or if they're capped, we are an imminent swarm. So I need to make some major decisions. So I'm feeling a little stressed, a little anxious about this because it's it's a big process, and I'm still so new at this. And every time I go in the hive, I worry that I'm going to kill a bunch of bees, potentially damage the queen or kill the queen. Like it makes me anxious, and they can feel that. Everything about bees is energetic. They only see movement and a little bit of color, specific colors. So there are specific flowers they're attracted to because of their color. They can smell very well, and the queen puts out her own pheromone that allows the workers to know exactly where she is in the hive at any time. If you kill a bee, it secretes a smell that everybody else can smell instantly, and it puts them on alert, and they go into attack mode. So it happens. We kill bees accidentally when we put the hive boxes back on and stuff, but we try really hard not to do that. That's one of the reasons we use a smoker, because it chases them off so that you can put things back together without crushing a bunch of bees. And finally, they release pheromones when they are stressed. And so the whole point of when you're in there is to try to move slowly and gently, but also quickly enough that you get your thing done and don't leave the hive open for a long period of time. So I know eventually I'll get good at it, but right now I'm not good at that, and it makes me super anxious. That's the other thing that's on tap for today is the bees. That's a big chunk of it. And then I was gonna try to move some soil around off the driveway, but when you go into the beehives, they are a little irritable for the rest of the day, and sometimes the next day too. So trying to be out there moving soil and wood chips just on the other side of the hedge from the bees is a terrible idea. Basically, they'll come after me, and I don't blame them. And at that point, I won't be wearing my suit. So I'll have to find another project here, and I think what we're going to do is transplant some more perennials into the cottage garden. I've been shuffling things around in here. There's just no more space. I really got to get some stuff out. And so I think that's what we're going to do. Before we start uppotting these guys, let me show you pretty much all of our cucumbers and winter and summer squashes have germinated. They're looking great. They won't be able to stay in these for very long, so I'll have to uppot those too, and then that means I need more space in here. So we are rapidly approaching the time when I'm going to take out all of these succulents so that I can use the top shelf here that gets a lot of sun for bumped up things like tomatoes and stuff, and this shelf here too. Below that, there's no lights, and it's pretty dark because of the things above. So I really only have 2 shelves on this that I can use for that, but I'll also have this shelf up here as well because these things will go outside. We are about to get 3 days of rain, Friday night, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and into Monday a little bit. So I'm waiting until after that. The temperatures are fine at this point. These succulents can totally survive out there. I just don't want them getting waterlogged and then rotting. So that's the only thing that's keeping them in here up to this point. But then I'll have some extra shelf space so I can bump up all of these new seedlings that need to come out of the 6-packs. So lots of turnover in here, but we're doing great. And I'm so, so, so thankful that I haven't had rodent issues in here this year, and all my seedlings look good and healthy and have survived. That just is such a blessing. Last year was pretty depressing because I had lost 60 to 75% of what I planted got eaten by rodents overnight. So now that I am diligent about covering everything every single night, we have a lot of survivability, which is very exciting. Okay, so I'm going to get started bumping these guys up. Hopefully this will help. I'll have to keep a close eye on them for the next week or two. I mean, they'll have a little bit of transplant shock, but I'm really hoping that this will fix the problem because they're both beautiful plants and they weren't cheap. So I definitely don't want them to just die. All right, I've already got some potting soil in here, and then this on top is cactus mix, and you can see it's got a lot of perlite and grit and stuff in it. So I'm hoping that will add to the drainage and help these plants out. Okay, so these guys are all potted up. I hope this really helps them. I'll leave them out here for the day because it's very warm in here. It's going to be a little over 80 degrees in the greenhouse today, which will feel amazing and nice and sunny. So I'll let the water drain and help them get kind of acclimated, and then we'll bring them back in the house this evening. These two were definitely two separate plants, but I really had a struggle trying to get the root systems apart. So hopefully I didn't damage them too much and they'll recover, but it's nice to get two plants out of one. Okay, so let's go check what's going to go in the cottage garden. It's not much, but I'm doing, like I said, doing my best to like start picking through here and pulling out stuff that I can. I have to leave a number of things aside for customers for their flower garden in a box, and so I have other things that I could plant out, but those are on hold because they have a different home in store. So I'll show you what we're going to plant out. Okay, so for this morning, and like I said, it's not much. I have two of these. These are Bachelor Button the Bride. They are so beautiful. I kind of stopped growing Bachelor Buttons because they're pretty, but they're kind of a pain to harvest. So this is a white variety that's just gorgeous, and I just want it in my cottage garden, and they direct sow themselves pretty well at the end of the season. So then we have two salvias here. This is Oxford Blue, another Oxford Blue, and then these rangy crazy things are Maximilian sunflowers. Now, it might be too early to put them out. They may just die, but that's okay. They're just an experiment for me at this point. And then this is a 6-pack, looks like there's 5 of them in here, of Dandy Collarette Dahlia. So I'm going to put these guys out. And then this is a 6-pack of Johnny Jump Ups, just violas, that'll go in the front of the beds. Now, the stuff that's still remaining over here, these are all things that are starting to harden off again for customers. We've got penstemon, Victoria Blue Salvia, Oxford Blue Salvia, some eucalyptus, calendula, dianthus, freesia, and then catnip, and some more salvias, as well as more Maximilian sunflowers. And then I also bump up into pots for customers things like zinnias and amimagus and all the other flowers, but these are the perennial flowers that they'll go home with, and then they'll have a bunch of annual flowers as well. Okay, I'm going to go have a cup of coffee, and then we'll come back out and get started on this. However, I think, oh yeah, it's basically bee time. I have to time it for when the sun is on the hives, and that's about now, within the next half hour. So I'm gonna see if I can get the GoPro to work so I can record this. We'll see, but I want to get the hive dive done, and then I can move on to transplanting these. Okay guys, it's the end of the day and I'm gonna wrap this video up, but the bee footage that you're gonna see is basically me going into both hives. I have two hives. One of them is a 10 frame hive. It has 2 deep boxes and 2 medium boxes, which are acting as honey supers on them. The other hive is an 8 frame hive. It has 2 deep boxes and 1 medium box as a honey super. So I had to take 28 frames of honey that we couldn't eat because of the insecticide for the mites. Take those out, replace them with 28 empty frames for them. And then I had to go into the deep boxes and look for signs of queen cells. And it's been almost a week since I went into the hives. This was important. So today when I went in, I was able to find queen cups in there. So they are days away from swarming. So it's also extremely early. Last year when I split hives to prevent swarming, it was the end of March, early April, and now we are at the end of February. So, but we've been seeing swarms all over our area already being called in. It's very, very early in the year for that. So I had a choice to make. I could either wait. The big problem is today was beautiful. It was nice and warm. Yesterday was nice and warm. Tomorrow is going to be cooler. But we are going into about 7 or 8 days of cool, like 52-degree weather, which is too cold. The bees don't want to be out in that. And rain. And so what will happen is the queen will continue to lay and they'll get so big inside of the colony that they will, as soon as the sun comes out and it warms up just slightly, they will swarm immediately. So I could either take my chances and wait until the next good day of weather, but there's no warm days coming up, like tomorrow's it. Or I could go ahead and split tomorrow. And after a lot of back and forth with my mentor, we've decided we're going to go ahead and split tomorrow. I'll make 2 splits, 1 for each hive. The downside to that is that, the split, most likely, I don't think I'm going to put the queen in the split. I'll, if I can, leave her in the colony, the main colony hive. So what a split does is you take out frames from the hive. In this case, I'm doing 5 frame nukes, 2 of them. So for each hive, I'll take 5 frames out and replace them with 5 empty frames. So those 5 frames, 1 frame will be honey with hopefully nectar. And then 2 frames will be capped brood that has been laid in the cells and has been capped over. So they will be emerging soon. And then a frame of uncapped brood, meaning they are much younger. And then maybe 1 more frame of honey/pollen, just depends. Or an empty frame for them to continue to build on. So then what happens, you move those frames over, and then you also add some bees. You take some frames from the hive and you shake the bees into the nuke. And so, then you close it up. And what they do is they will sense that they do not have, pretty much immediately, that they do not have a queen because they can't smell her anymore. But they do have brood to take care of. So the nurse bees will continue to do that. And they will create queen cells, and the worker bees can lay eggs. They just don't. It's the queen that does it. So the worker bees will lay eggs in those queen cells, and the first one to hatch out will go out on a mating run and come back and hopefully have mated and come back and become the queen of that colony. And like I said before, they'll kill the remaining bees, they'll kill the remaining queen cells. So whoever hatches first wins, basically. But the risk at this time of year is that it's colder. And so the bees that are remaining in the nuke have to work really extra hard to keep that brood warm because they are fewer in number. The other risk is that in the bad weather, the queen will fly and either get lost or injured or killed by rain on her mating flight. So this is a terrible time of year to have to do this, but if I don't do it, both hives will swarm, and then I'll lose half the colony on both of them, and those swarms have a much lower likelihood of surviving than if you create a split. They have a much higher likelihood of surviving. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it, and there's a good chance that I'll have to split again at the normal time of year. I'll have to keep a really close eye on the big colonies. Now in those nuke boxes that only have 5 frames instead of 10, I can add another box on top with another 5 frames to give them extra space as they grow before they go into a main colony. These 2 nukes, which stands for nucleus, are going to, a friend who's setting up bees, her colony had some problems and didn't overwinter, so they're going to set up bees. They'll take both of these. So what we'll do is I'll split them tomorrow. I have to put them in on a safe platform that I will treat with tanglefoot to keep ants from getting in, because that's the other thing. A lot of times with nukes, the ants can smell the honey, and there's not as many bees to defend the hive against the ants. So we use this stuff called tanglefoot. It's basically like a little glue that you put around the platform where they are, so that when the ants crawl up, they get stuck in it and they can't get into the hive. Tomorrow's gonna be a super busy day of doing that. It's not gonna take that long to actually make the splits, but getting the setup done first is gonna take a while. So what you're seeing in the video today is what I did to investigate those hives. I'm really glad I wore canvas shirt and pants underneath my bee suit this time, because if I hadn't, I would have been stung a lot. I didn't get any actual physical stings, but I felt them bumping me. It felt like pebbles being thrown at me, and if you may be able to tell from the video, there were thousands of bees freaking out because I was messing up their home, their entire home. And the 2 deep boxes that are stacked had so much propolis and comb in between them that I had to pull out all the individual frames up top, which I never really want to do because you risk injuring your queen, in order to get those boxes apart. So I'm still a little anxious because I didn't take a lot of time to look where she was in each hive. I just hope I didn't kill her by accident. We'll find out. So tomorrow's gonna be another bee day. I don't think I'll do GoPro for that. Maybe I can set up the camera somewhere, because like I said, it's pretty straightforward, and shouldn't be nearly as invasive to them because I've already gone through and opened up everything for them. So what it does for the main hive is it takes away a big population of bees. It gives them some fresh new frames, because you'll replace the ones that you take out with empty frames, or if I had frames that already had drawn comb, I would totally give that to them, because that's less work for them to do. So that gives them more space, and so they feel, by making a split, all of a sudden they feel like, oh, we swarmed, so we're good, we don't need to do anything else, until their numbers start increasing. So pretty much right now, all the way through June, is when we have a swarm season where their numbers are increasing week over week dramatically. And so it's when you really got to keep up with it every 2 weeks or less, depending on what you're supposed to be doing when, to go in and check. One more thing I'm going to do for mite prevention is I'm going to replace some of the frames that I take out in the deep boxes, which are big, tall frames. I'm going to replace with medium frames, which are only this tall. I'm only going to do that 1 frame each. And the reason is the bees will then build comb, but they'll build drone cells on the bottom of that short frame, equal to the length of the other frames. And varroa mites prefer to lay their eggs in drone cells. So it's basically like setting a trap. So if you put an empty frame, like completely empty, no foundation in it, or half a frame where the bees can build the top part with regular cells, and then the bottom they will build drone cells, you can actually catch a ton of mites and their eggs and then you remove that. So every 3 weeks, like clockwork, because that's the mite breeding schedule, you go in and you take that frame out, and you can scrape off the whole bottom and dispose of it. And that will reduce your mite population quite a bit. However, if you don't keep up with the every 3 week schedule, then you're basically breeding mites in your hive. So it's very important to follow these things to a T, and bad weather can cause problems with that method. So I'm going to do it anyway, because we are starting to enter a time where we're going to have fewer and fewer rainstorms, and hopefully if I see one coming, I'll just go in a little early and scrape all that stuff off. All right, thanks for letting me talk your ear off. I know this is not gardening material, but it's a big part of my day these last couple days, and will be tomorrow. And then we'll be back to gardening and getting things ready for spring. So thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you have a wonderful time in your garden, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.